Welcome to the NonProfit Voice, a podcast series brought to you by NonProfit Pro, the go-to resource for nonprofit management and strategy. In each episode, we're going to sit down with leaders of nonprofit organizations, the people responsible for paving the way for our sector, along with key technology strategy partners who are transforming our industry. Here at the NonProfit Voice, we'll have refreshing conversations in which we will all learn more about the convergence of nonprofit and technology. Be sure to follow us on social media and visit our website to find more episodes of the NonProfit Voice. And you can download all of the NonProfit Voice episodes on iTunes, Google Play, or Spotify. We will have all the links down below. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the NonProfit Voice. I'm Nhu Te, Editor-in-Chief of NonProfit Pro, and I will be your host for today's episode. I am very happy to be here as always. You guys know I love hosting these podcasts, and I hope you guys are excited too. And I also hope that you are safe and healthy and doing really well. I know there's a lot of crazy stuff out there, and it's already flu season and everybody's sick and germs are everywhere, and added on to that is this coronavirus pandemic. So I'm hoping you guys are taking care of yourself, washing your hands, staying germ-free and safe. So welcome to episode number 13 of the NonProfit Voice. I can't believe we're already here, but I'm really excited that it's happening, and I'm really pumped about the guest that we have on the line right now. I'm really excited to introduce today's guest. Please join me in welcoming Erica Bess, Associate Director of Direct Response at Share Our Strength, and Nick Ellinger, Chief Brand Officer at More. Thanks for joining today, guys. How are you both doing?
Doing well, thank you.
Great, thanks.
Awesome. So before we get started, Erica, can you share your background with us? Tell us more about yourself and what you do at Share Our Strength.
Yeah, definitely. So I am the Associate Director of Direct Response at Share Our Strength. I work on the No Kid Hungry campaign. So our goal is to end childhood hunger in America. Currently 1 in 7 kids in America lives with hunger. And so we work to make sure that kids have access to free school meals in the summer. And we also do, with some of our other campaigns, Cooking Matters, food, nutrition, skills, and education. So I oversee all of our acquisition and retention strategy and all of our direct response channels, mail, ads, email, all that good stuff for all donors under $10,000.
Very cool. And Nick, tell us about yourself.
I got into nonprofits in 2003. I started working for MAD in the public policy department, and then in 2007 was bitten by a radioactive direct mail piece and started going over onto the fundraising side of things. Ran the direct marketing program for about a decade there, then was at Donor Voice for 3.5 years, and then joined the More team in January. More's collective of 35 different companies working on different aspects of fundraising, end-to-end salute from the strategy side of things all the way through caging. So the whole spectrum of what we do. And so I'm working with More on our brand, on our marketing, and hopefully creating a lot of educational materials for the sector.
Awesome. So today, Nick, Erica, and I are on the line because we're going to talk about deepening donor relationships. But what kind of sparked this idea for me is, Nick, I'm going to put you in the spotlight really quick. Please tell me more about the book.
So back in August, I released a book called The New NonProfit, and it's looking at 6 different ways that nonprofits can use to make themselves more relevant and more effective in this new and ever-changing fundraising environment. So from how do you turn yourself into a media organization, to mergers and acquisitions, to the topic of this, becoming the preferred nonprofit for your donors. It is available on Amazon, and I personally like it.
I also like it a lot.
I also
I
like it too.
recommend it.
I felt like for me, it was a really easy read. And this chapter in particular was very interesting for me because at NonProfit Pro, we're all about talking about donor relationships and how we can really capitalize on that. So cool. And I will definitely add a link to the book when we post this down in the description. All right, cool. So, Erica, I'd love to start with you. So, in attempting to deepen relationships with donors, many nonprofits tend to kind of overdo it and send way too many messages, whether it's print or digital. Can you talk about the harm in this and how this can affect donor relationships?
Yeah, and it's interesting for us. We're kind of a new direct response program. So when I started at Share Our Strength 5 years ago, we were only really sending, 4 or 5 mailings a year, couple emails here and there. And so we did have to increase our mail volume and our email volume so that we could, raise money and build a donor base. But I think over the last probably year and a half, we were hit with some pretty unique challenges. We had a ton of problems with our email deliverability that really forced us to get strategic about the messages that we were sending to folks. So over the last summer, in order to increase deliverability, increase click-through rates, we got really, really into sending a majority cultivation email unless we were around kind of a bigger fundraising tentpole moment. And really trying to send videos and messages about their impact rather than have it just be kind of like, constantly asking for money, making it more of a two-way exchange where we're hopefully making donors feel like they're having a real impact on the lives of hungry kids. And I think the other big thing for us is we worked with Donor Voice when Nick was there to do some testing around our messaging, and the copy that we were using was really, really stat heavy. It was really about us as an organization rather than the impact that a donor could have. So we've worked really hard to, when we are sending messages to people asking for money, tying it back to what their impact is and how they can make a difference in the life of a hungry kid.
And what Erica describes there is what's happening in deliverability isn't just happening online. The spam filter effect, the spam filter is just a way of a computer doing what you already do with your emails, with your mail pieces, those sorts of things. So if you have a deliverability issue on email, the equivalent is someone taking your direct mail piece and throwing it into the trash. And so there's this question of, what are you training your donors to do? If you are training your donor to open an email from you or open a mail piece from you and say, this is something that is extremely valuable to me, whether I donate or not, that's a really positive experience and adds to that donor's lifetime value. If you are training them that this is not going to be a message of relevance to me, it's not going to affect me in any way, then you're training them to throw it away. And pretty soon people will do what they're trained to do. Now, the trick is that right number doesn't, it varies from person to person. And so you always want to be able to ask for that, to say, what channels do you want? How often do you want to hear from us? But we know that donors live busy lives, and so they're not always wanting to answer surveys at that point. So you also want to have a backstop to be able to figure out what that right number is. Sometimes that's more than what you're currently sending. Sometimes that's less. But if someone's donating to you every November, like clockwork, for 5 straight years, and getting your full mail series because they are a 0 to 12 month donor, there's probably some mail pieces that you can be taking out of there, adding some of that cultivation that Erica talked about. And you're never going to be able to cut your way to glory, but those are dollars that you can reinvest.
Great. So, we've talked about, getting the donors' attention and making sure, you're training them to find your pieces valuable, which is great. But let's talk about, sharing pointers for the right way of stewarding donors, which is kind of the next step. Erica, can you share any advice on that?
Yeah, so I think what Nick was just talking about as far as reaching out to people in their preferred channels, that's definitely something that I want to move towards. I think that we've seen some good evidence in our own program that, if you're an online donor, why are we sending you a piece of mail if they've already proven to us that they like giving online. So I definitely think those communications being timely and relevant, not only in the relevant channel, but the relevant message is really important. I think the other way that we get caught up a lot of times is like we're so in the work and so in the programs and the technical jargon that sometimes we forget to break it down for an individual donor. So sometimes that can be something as complicated as like stats and really trying to spell out what the statistical impact of somebody's gift is versus kind of telling a story that's all about emotion. Other times it can be really technical phrases or ideas. So one thing that we kind of tested and talked about a lot was this idea of nutrition hubs, where kids are all going to school. We want to make sure that they're getting fed. So we'll, refer to schools as nutrition hubs. That is a lot of steps for someone to get from point A to point B. But an idea like kids are missing meals and you can help feed them is much simpler to grasp and ties into the call to action a lot easier. So I think, that sort of relevance is also really important. You want to keep it, you don't want to make people think too hard.
One of the other things that No Kid Hungry is doing well in your face-to-face program in particular is you're breaking down and asking people, are you a parent or non-parent? Because research for them has found that those parents respond differently and to different cues than non-parents. And when you can attach your giving to that person's identity, to something that's core to them, that's very powerful, because then the message becomes people like you do things like this. And we're so used to putting people into one large bucket, for lack of a better term, and marketing to them all. And when it's incredibly powerful to be able to go from 1 to 2 or 2 to 4 and be able to make that message ever more customized and personalized for that donor, really trying to take it down to as you wish. One of the things that we're trying to do at More is invest in the next round of technology that's going to be able to personalize to the individual person. So I'm a parent, I had an experience with hunger. I'm for a animal organization, I'm a dog person versus cat person. I've given this off and I know this much, taking the transactional, taking what the person says about themselves, and taking the experiential, what have they done in terms of our white paper, come to our website, all of those things come into one area, and then the message is customized to that person. That'll be that's what we're hoping is the future of that type of way to steward donors, where it is fulfilling the promise of one-to-one marketing that we've wanted to be able to do for 20, 30 years now.
Yeah, and I really want to talk about donor identities. I think it's such a great piece that you outlined in your book. But before we get there, I want to go back and talk about being the preferred nonprofit. And, that sounds great. But how can a nonprofit get there? And what strategies can you offer to our listeners today?
Sure. So the idea of the preferred nonprofit is really something that has been evolving recently. You take a look at the donor groups that are from a transactional perspective. You take a look at the donor groups that are increasing right now. It's mid-major donors, it's monthly donors, it's planned giving. Every other type of donor group is decreasing over time. And so those are the types of gifts you give when you are fully committed to an organization, when it's part of your soul. A monthly giver is saying, this is something that is continuing to be a part of our life. A major donor is making a substantial sacrifice, in most cases, of their personal wealth because they believe so strongly. And a plan giver, well, that's kind of the ultimate expression of, this is who I am. And once that gift is made, this is who I was, and this is what my legacy is. those are not the types of gifts that you get with a shallow appeal to donors. You really have to be connected to who they are and really have a sense of why they are giving and be able to talk about that why in all of your communications. It's also essential because thankfully it's been a good long time since the last major economic downturn. But if and when there is another economic downturn, because we know these things are cyclical, people cut back, but they don't cut back on the things that are part of themselves. And so you want to not just be loved, you want to be preferred over other nonprofits in this realm as a part of your appeal.
And that's something we're trying to prove that out, especially right now in face-to-face. We ask people after they give their street gift for their commitment and satisfaction, general comments about the experience, and we'll go back to them. If they had a good experience, we thank them. If they didn't have a very good experience or they had a concern, we're reaching out to them to see how we could make the experience better and what we need to do to make them feel good about that interaction. So I think, deploying that on a larger scale and really making sure that you show you're committed to their happiness and their satisfaction is a really important piece.
I love it. All right, so let's get into understanding different donor identities. And Nick, I'd love for you to, kick this off by how does this differ from segmentation? What exactly is it? And how deep do we get in separating these donor identities?
Sure. So a donor identity is we walk around our lives with all of these different identities that we put on in different circumstances. So for example, I am a parent of school-age children and I am a Green Bay Packer fan. And I behave differently when I am watching a Green Bay Packer game than I do at a parent-teacher conference, which is really beneficial for that parent-teacher conference. If I wear my Packer fan identity in there, people look funny at me when I have a cheesehead on. So that holds true for our donor identities as well. We give to different organizations because of what they touch in us. We give to the hospital where our lives were saved. We give to the charity that works to solve the disease that we had or that a loved one had. I'm a donor to Autism Speaks because both of my children are on the autism spectrum. And my reasons for giving to Autism Speaks are different than they would be for not only anyone else giving to Autism Speaks. There are people who give in the There But For the Grace of God Go I Can, but they're also different for my reasons to giving for Alzheimer's Association. That's not because of my kids, that's because of my grandparents, my grandfather who had Alzheimer's. And so I wear a different hat with Autism Speaks than I do from Alzheimer's Association. And my reasons for giving, even though I'm doing a philanthropic act in each case, is very different. So what does that mean for the organization? One of the things that we keep striving for in all of our communications is this right person, right time, right message. And with segmentation, we're trying to get to that. And in fact, identities can be segments. You can send out a segment that is to your parent audience or to your dog audience or things like that. But I want to challenge our audience here to think about segmentation, identities, beyond just an in-out segmentation. I send them this communication or I don't. That's good, that's the right person, that's the right time, but is that the right message? And so being able to say, yes, parents and non-parents are going to get this mail piece, but I'm going to tweak the language here to be able to change it. And so, for example, we did a test, we being Donor Voice, did a test with Make-A-Wish and found that when you advertise to add medical professionals, if you add the phrase as a medical professional to the beginning of that ad and talk about then why it's important, click-through rates go up 42% because that's speaking to their identity and who they are. That's a segmentation, but it's also a customization that you do within your existing ads. And the thing that I think we're all striving for is we have one giant bucket And now we've gone to 2 buckets, and now we can go to 4 buckets and trying to get these additional intersections.
Mm-hmm.
But the challenge we have is we always talk about the leaky bucket phenomenon, that we have to keep acquiring because people are not retaining. And so you have to fill faster than people are coming out, and you talk size of holes and all of that analogy. And the thing that I would challenge us to do is say, maybe the reason we have leaky buckets is that we keep putting people into buckets. That maybe we can get to a level where we're talking one-on-one, yes, in a mass way, but that is all determined based on all of these factors that come in. That's identities, that's transactional information, that's how you interact with us as an organization. That really gets to an idea of one-on-one marketing, because then you can be truly preferred because you are the right organization for that right person, because you've customized everything that you're doing for that person.
And Nick, not to put you on the spot or like take over as the interviewer, but one thing I really liked in your book was how you kind of broke down, like if you're making choices based on RFM, if you have that identity information, how that kind of like slices through. I don't know if you want to talk.
Sure. So let's say that you as an organization say, my donors become lapsed if they haven't given in the last 24 months. Does a person's reason for giving change from month 23, day 28 to month 24, day 2? In that 4-day period, do they change why they gave to your organization? My argument is that they do not. They are not a fundamentally different person. They are hopefully just a person that forgot to send in their check. If their reason for giving is strong enough, if you can become that preferred nonprofit, then you don't have to change the way you're addressing. And if you had to choose whether you treated someone differently based on how they came to their organization, their core why of giving. So Autism Speaks. If you had to treat me and treat Erica differently based on one of us is an active donor and one of us is a lapsed donor because we're at 23 or 25 months, or do you treat us differently because one of us has kids with autism and the other one does not? You would definitely choose the latter because it goes to the core of who they are and why they're giving.
And then just from our side, we have tested ads targeting parents, and it's definitely increased click-throughs, better CPAs. We have injected some parent-specific messaging into a couple of our communications. We're working FY21 plans, best laid plans, to get that data in our database in a more meaningful way and really start to use it and test it and be strategic with our segmentation.
Awesome. And we talked about so much today, and you both provided so much great insight on this topic. And we like to end off our podcast with one final question. And Erica, I'll let you go first. If you give one piece of advice to nonprofits, what would it be?
I think something that I really like to do is try to, as much as possible, dip into the info box or look at our gift scans and really read what donors are writing. I think sometimes when we're planning all of these multi-channel campaigns and we think we've got a great idea, I always like to get a sense of like how people are actually reacting to that. And analyzing it quantitatively if you can, but I think the qualitative analysis is really important, and understanding why your donors are giving and why they're moved by an issue like childhood hunger. I think it's really important to not forget that it's real people on the other end of that mail piece or that email, and I think that's it can be easy to forget that in this sort of direct response fundraising.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's especially when you're seeing it as numbers.
Mm-hmm.
But that piece about connecting with them and finding out why they're donating, I think is very, very important. Nick, how about you?
I'd say that having been on the nonprofit side, I know what it's like when that fire hose is aimed at you and you're getting all of this stuff in and you're overwhelmed by the number of things that come at you. And I would say then that my piece of advice is to not let perfect as your goal be the enemy of taking a step forward. I used to say this with databases in particular, that we're trying to get to a better state of broken. We're not going to be perfect in everything that we do, but we're going to become better than we were yesterday. And thankfully, so many of the ways that we've talked about in terms of customization and personalization, learning more about your donor, all of that is easier to do and less expensive than it's ever been before. The online tools for customization are great, and you can variabilize your copy very easily. Now in the mail, here at More, we have 12 digital presses so that you can have mail be a digital canvas where you're customizing like you would for online and putting it in the mail. And so it's easier to say, let me try different messaging to different people than it's ever been before. And that's a really exciting place. And taking one step forward shows you the next step of the path. I was successful on this step. Now let me take another. Let me take another. And pretty soon that evolutionary change adds up to be revolutionary.
Great stuff. All right, so that about wraps it up for today's episode. I want to thank my listeners for listening on today's podcast. And Erica, Nick, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for joining me today on the Nonprofit Voice.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
And so on behalf of Nonprofit Pro, we'll see you on the next episode of the Nonprofit Voice. Have a great day.